in a way that I can be exemplary to the others, in a way that I can be an example for others, or you know, in a way that I can develop as a person, in a way that others can be able to benefit from my growth. So that is self-leadership for me, having that focus on yourself to grow yourself into someone that can be an example to others.
People at the moment are struggling to understand the older generation because times have changed. Technology has come in.
They have moved on.
Yes.
We're the ones sitting back and wondering, what is my child on to? TikTok has surpassed WhatsApp. The other one I call, I never call it Facebook, it's Bookface. Why are you on Bookface? Dad, it's Facebook.
Yes.
Me, I keep saying, I have a foot amongst the millennials.
Yeah.
I understand the traditionalists.
Okay.
There's a song in the 60s, by the way, and in the 90s, 70s, where they're like, parents don't understand.
Yes.
Yeah, remember Prince?
Yes.
Prince.
To talk about my experiences and how God has been able to use me in the different exposures. And through the leadership, through change management and transformation, I've been able to do a couple of things in my life. Now, are you a kind of person who is tired of your status quo? Do you want your situation to change? Are you tired of what is going on in your life? You know, change is a fact of life. We've all been through experiences in the last couple of months that have taken us to a place where we need to do something about our lives. We need to change whatever is going on. So if you have not piled up investment for yourself, you need to do that. If you've not done businesses to hold your family in future, you need to do that. Are you thinking of full-time employment? You need to be thinking about your life after employment or your business in the next couple of years. So if you want us to chat, if you want us to talk about this, please get in touch with us at SEAL Uganda on number 0772443085, or check our website www.sealuganda.com, or on all the social media handles. You can hook me up or Facebook, that is Jean Paul Olowo, on Instagram, Jean Paul Olowo, and on Twitter and LinkedIn. Then we can chat a way forward with you. We can help you, we can coach you, we can walk with you this journey of financial freedom. Thank you.
People at the moment are struggling to understand the older generation because times have changed. Technology has come in.
They have moved on.
Yes.
We're the ones sitting back and wondering, what is my child on to? TikTok has surpassed WhatsApp. The other one I call, I never call it Facebook, it's Bookface. Why are you on Bookface? Dad, it's Facebook.
Yes.
me, I keep saying,
Yeah.
I have a foot amongst the millennials.
Yeah.
And I understand the traditionalists.
Okay.
There's a song in the 60s, by the way, and
Yeah.
in the 90s, 70s, where they're like, parents don't understand.
Yes.
Remember Prince?
Yes.
Prince.
This is the CEO Bench. My name is Eddie Okila and it's a Friday. Welcome to the CEO Bench. Of course, this week we bring you a very interesting guest, the third female on the show, and we will be talking leadership, change management and transformation. And of course, in today's rapidly changing world, learning to of course lead and design our organization to read the turbulence of time that comes with leadership challenges and change management is key in us making proper decisions that will take our organization forward, but also to allow us, manage impact of what we're trying to do. So today on the show, this program brings you Francis Birungi Odong, who is an executive director of UCOBAC. I'm yet to understand how to pronounce the entire word from her, but Francis, welcome to the show.
Thank you, thank you.
How are you doing today?
I'm fine, I'm very well, thank
And
you.
welcome to the CEO Bench.
Thank you, thanks for having me.
You're welcome. So, in a nutshell, who is Francis?
So, who is Francis? So, Francis is Francis Birungi Odong, as you said. I am, what should I say? I work in UCOBAC, like you said. UCOBAC in full, it's a mouthful indeed. It's Uganda Community-Based Association for Women and Children's Welfare. I am married to one man. We have 4 children. I was born in Kenya, but I'm Ugandan. My parents were exiled in Kenya for a period of time. So we are a family of 7. And 6 of us were born in Kenya, and then we moved back to Uganda. So I have been partly raised in Kenya and partly raised in Uganda. So basically, that's who I am. I don't know if that's sufficient.
Yes.
Yes.
It's always difficult for people to say who they are and what they stand for.
Yes.
So, Francis, welcome to the CEO Bench. We want to know more about you as an individual. How did you end up where you are in what you're doing today? Since you said you were born in Kenya,
Yes.
because your parents were exiled in Kenya,
Yes.
why did you choose not to stay in Kenya than to return to Uganda and to end up to what you're doing today?
Yeah. Really, that was not my choice. That was my parents' choice. I'm sure them living in Kenya was not by choice. It was because of the circumstances at that time. And so when everything settled down, they chose to return to Uganda, and we were taken to schools in Uganda. Unfortunately, when I came into Uganda, when we came back as a family, I only spoke Swahili. I couldn't speak anything else. So getting into school, it was very difficult because, of course, in Uganda, we don't speak Swahili. It was very difficult to speak, to speak English, to speak the local languages in Uganda. So I had to go backwards. So many times in the classes, as I was progressing, I was usually the older one in the class because I had to go back, yes, a number of steps. But it was okay. Somehow I was fitting in. Did my primary school here in a school called Nsube. Then from there I went to Tororo Girls School for secondary, finished my secondary, went to Green Hill, did my HSC, then went to university where I did a first degree. And while doing actually when I was in my senior 6 vacation, I asked my mom that I wanted to do some voluntary work. I wanted to, to do something other than sitting at home. So she was, at that time, she was working with a non-government organization as well called Forward. And I was taken in as an intern. So I worked there. I it kind of gave me the first experience of working in a civil society organization. They were focusing on work, supporting women to participate in leadership positions and so forth. So it was very intriguing at that age, but it was not yet my time to really, work. I wasn't very sure, but I was trying to figure out what it is that I wanted to do. And for me, it was very empowering seeing what was happening in this organization. And when I went to university, I did social sciences, majoring in sociology. So I think my choice for the university for the course that I took was because of what I saw that was happening in this organization. So I did my sociology course, finished 3 years, and after school I told, again I had a conversation with my parents and told them, you know what, I feel like I want to do the work that I did when I was doing my voluntary work. So do you think you can help to talk to your peers, because they were doing that? My father was in politics, but my mother was doing civil society work. And at that point, I was taken in UCOBAC.
Yes.
As an intern.
Right,
Yes, so it was immediately after university that I joined UCOBAC as an intern. And I started, doing simple work. I was really doing support work in the organization. But I was very eager to learn about what they were doing. It was very interesting, but also the kind of work that they were doing, working with women and children. I thought that was something that was very powerful. I moved to the field with the staff that were in UCOBAC at that time, and did, I would do the support work of giving out paper or serving tea or serving, anything that I could be, asked to do. But in the process, I always sat in the classes for the women and the children, and I would look at how the staff were impacting on these lives. It was very interesting to see how people's lives were transforming, from nothing to something. So really it built, it built my interest. But also I felt that I wanted to know more about how I can contribute in a more meaningful way in this sector.
Wow.
Yes, so I worked there as an intern for some time, and I didn't feel like I wanted to do anything else. To me, it was I had arrived, if I should say.
So basically your mind was corrupted, and this is where I'm going to be.
Yes, I had arrived at that point, because really for me what was very important to me was transformation, was seeing lives of people changing from nothing to something. And the fact that in this environment was showing me that it is possible to contribute in one way or another to change an individual's life. So it exposed me. I came from a background, my parents, I wouldn't say it was a very poor family, so I had not got that exposure. So working in this environment really showed me the reality of the world. I came to see that actually majority of Ugandans were living in poverty, were vulnerable and needed support. So for me, it was fulfilling to work in this organization, and that is how I started my career in UCOBAC.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, if you're joining the CEO Bench, that right there is getting you into what we call knowing somebody personally, and of course getting into their life. That is Frances is the executive director of UCOBAC, and she's on the CEO Bench. If you're joining us from anywhere in the world, we're live on Twitter, we're live on Facebook, we're live on YouTube, and House of Time /Facebook. Please tell your neighbor and tap your cousins, and this story is going to be a very interesting one. As well as on Twitter, wherever you are, tweet, show, share, retweet, and make sure everybody gets to know what is happening. Frances, I want to just take you straight to this. And in today's changing world, this rapidly changing world, learning to lead and design our organization to read the turbulence of time creatively is critical to our ability to make positive impact. And this television program is about those that are at the top of doing that, or those that are rising up to the top of doing that, and the focus is on transformational change. and the implications for the individuals who are in that space as leaders, or in their organizations, or in the culture of the organization, or in our society, depending on what structure that we're in. Your story that you have given in the intro of this interview is very important. But we want to know something more specifically, lining to your organization, which is civil society today. Give us a sneak peek of the life of a woman in that space.
Oh, that's a very good question. The life of a woman in this space is just the same as the life of a woman in any other space. It's not an easy space, especially when it comes to leadership, and when it comes to influencing decisions and also influencing processes in any other institution.
Yeah.
So it is not an easy space for a woman. It is a space where a woman has to do something extra or do something more to be able to prove that they are able to do what they should be doing.
Yeah.
So I would say that it's the same. It's very competitive. Many times we see that in many civil society organizations, still we find them to be male-headed, and we're having many women, many girls taking up leadership roles in civil society organizations, but it's not an easy task. It's where we have to really prove ourselves that we can lead these organizations to greater heights. And there's a lot that is involved in the civil society organizations. There's leadership in itself, there's management of processes, there's management of the human resource, there's fundraising, there's research. It's a lot that needs to be done, and many times there is a feeling that is too much for a woman, because she has other traditional roles that she needs to do as at home.
Yeah.
So many times as people are looking for leaders in civil society organizations, the priority is usually given to men, because of our society that feels that men have the time, men have the capacity, men have the ability to lead, to take this organization to greater heights. And women, there will be a problem. They will have to go to maternity leave. They have issues. They are too emotional. They have not done the courses that are good enough for leaders. They don't have time to go for extra learning, or to go for work outside Kampala, because they have to tend to their children. So there's too much that society has tied around a woman. And it's true, we have these traditional roles that we have to do, but does not in any way mean that women cannot lead in these spaces. So it is really changing with time. As more women get into leadership positions, it's changing, and there's more appreciation that is coming towards women, because women have demonstrated, many women leaders in civil society organizations, like in any other institutions, have demonstrated that they are able to excel, to move these organizations to greater heights. So I think it's changing with time, but it's still very difficult for women to take on leadership positions.
Wow.
Yeah.
Francis, I like the journey, and I would want to ask you one more question just before we go into a break.
Yeah.
The leadership journey and the little information about the organization you currently lead. You said you ended up there.
Yes.
Starting into the process of
internship,
and then luckily your mother ended up taking you there, and now you are in that space.
Yeah.
We want to know more about this organization. What are the issues that you are working on as you go back at the moment, having started there as a child?
Okay.
I would call you as a child.
Yes, I was a child. I was a child. At that time, I was probably barely 20, maybe 19.
Yes.
A grown-up child, I should say. So the reason why I say my mother took me there, my mother was one of the founder members of this organization.
Yeah.
And she had been in politics before, and then later changed course and decided that she wanted to do something for women and children, because that's her passion. So she started this organization. And I admired her for a long time. When I was little, when I was young, my mother used to do a lot of work around mobilizing women to participate in governance processes. And we tagged along as children at home when she went for trainings in communities. And I admired the way she spoke to people, the way she impacted lives. So when she started this civil society organization, this NGO, I asked her, can I come and work with you? Can I support you in this process? And she took me in, but didn't take me in. She was very strict because she gave me a lecture at the beginning and said, okay, I'm taking you in, but you're not any special. You're going to come in as an intern. You're going to make tea for the staff. You're going to to type. In those days, they would type. They would handwrite, and then they give you to type so that you can learn. And you're going to it will depend on you on whether you will get a job or not, because I don't hire. I have a board that hires and fires. So I said, okay, I'll take it on. And many times people think that because this was an organization that was started by mother, that it was easy for me. It was actually more difficult for me because I had to prove myself beyond. I had to prove to her. I also had to prove to the board that I can be, I can work here. I am not taking advantage of this. I can do my best. I can contribute to this process. So so I got into this organization, and one thing that I did is that I worked hard. I worked hard at that time with the roles that I was given. I did them to the best that I could do. If it was typing something or going to support staff in the field, I did my best. I did not at any one time feel like, oh, I am someone's daughter, I am special. My mother is she's the founder member here. Yes. No, I did not have that at all. I worked hard, I proved myself. And when there was an opening for program officer, I put in my application. And I competed with many other people, and I was taken on as a program officer in the organization. And still, as a program officer, I worked hard. I delivered. Excellence is always something that I strive for. So I worked hard, I delivered, I proved myself. I moved the organization to the level where I felt it should be at that level as a program officer. And I have moved in this organization from one level to another. I started off as an intern. I became a project officer. I became a program officer, and now I am the CEO. So it has been growth within the organization that has not been handed to me, but I have worked hard for it. I have had to prove myself, and and I think really what I can say around that is that many times when girls or people are given opportunities in the organization, we take things for granted and don't put in a lot of effort to make sure that we prove ourselves and grow our careers within that organization, or move the organization from one level to another. And for me, that's what I did differently, and that is how I've been able to reach where I am.
Wow. Yeah. So it was not like come here, hand it over a silver plate, and receive it, go with it.
No, it's been really hard work. Yokoback is actually governed by a board. So even if we had we had other CEOs, they saw the work that I was doing in this organization. I was a young girl, but I was working hard. I was striving to learn, went back to school, did my master's degree. I got a master's degree in human rights, came back and tried as much as possible to apply what I had learned. And I think that demonstration of hard work and dedication has really been something that has moved me from one level to another, to a level where I am now a leader in this organization, where I started as an intern.
Wow.
Yes.
Out of curiosity, Frances, why did you choose your mother's path, not your father's path of being a politician? Why?
Well,
why not the politician in your father?
Yes, I know. I've had that question a number of times, and actually some people have always thought that probably I should have taken the political side. But for me, the passion that I have to, like I said in the beginning, the passion that I have to serve communities, underprivileged communities, marginalized sections of the community, for me that is closer to my heart. And I think politics is not a bad thing to do. My father did it well. Many politicians are doing it well. but it's not yet my time, probably, I should say that. But what I'm doing right now is very satisfying. I am supporting women and girls because, as you know, our society looks down upon women and girls because it's a patriarchal society.
Yeah.
So for me, I use my experience to inspire girls, to inspire women to be better, to improve in their homes, to improve in their places of work, and to contribute meaningfully to the development of our country. And I feel for me that is also politics in itself. If we can support women to be able to participate in leadership positions in politics, that is politics itself.
Yes. Wow, you've heard it from Francis right there. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, the CEO Bench will continue the discussion with Francis, and of course we'll be asking Francis more on the leadership, change management and transformation, which is what the show really stands for. Stay right there. We'll be right back after the break.
For me, leadership is a privilege of moving people towards a destiny. And for me, it would be towards God's agenda. That's the best, moving people to God's agenda. God has an agenda for everybody. And I know some people say, oh, it's too much of God, but God has a plan for this world. And so whether you're in business, you're a medical personnel, if somebody came to you, a good medical leader says, I want you not only to be healed, but to be healthy. That's the kind of mindset that I see, and it's about self. So if you ask me, am I a leader? By the grace of God, I am a leader, and I am growing as a leader. And I thank God for that privilege of being a leader. And who is a leader to me? It's very simple. Someone that has a vision, but is also someone that is there serving people. For me, that's a leader. Vision is where you want to take things. Serving is the recognition that if the things do not matter to people, drop them.
Wow.
Drop them. Because at the end of the day, whatever we do must make a difference in people's lives. Anybody who has had huge impact in history, in leadership, the impact is not measured by just the things they did, but what those things did for people's lives. Did they make a difference? So it's useless for you to make so much money and the money does not add value to people's lives.
Wow.
So for me, yes, you have to have a vision, and at the end of the day, you are serving people. Again, it doesn't change. Leadership is leadership, whether it is at what we would call a lower level or a top level. Leadership is leadership. It's about influence. It's that influence that comes from you have a vision and you are serving people. So what changes is the level of responsibility, but the other one that people don't like is the level of accountability. You see, Jesus said, to whom much is given, much will be required. So the only differences there is the level of responsibility. When you're at the national level, you are now responsible for an entire nation. When you are a CEO, now you're no longer just looking at the department, you are looking at the entire entity. The responsibility has changed, the accountability even goes higher. Hi, this is Julius Wotlonyo, pastor at Watero Church. Thank you so much for tuning into House of Talent Television. It's a great, innovative way of doing TV, and particularly for being a part of the CEO Bench, talking about leadership. You know what, friends? Leadership can be tough. Leadership can be lonely, and the dynamics of leadership keep changing. I want to encourage you, watch the CEO Bench so that you can get to hear real practical tips on leadership from people who are actually practicing leadership. Once again, thank you for being a part of the CEO Bench right here on House of Talent Television.
Welcome back from that break. My name is Eddie Okila, and of course this is the CEO Bench. Francis Birungi Odong is the Executive Director of Ukubak. I will not attempt to pronounce it or to mention it fully before I get completely lost and then I get sued for messing up with the name. But Francis, welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
And to all of you out there, please share this far and wide. Make sure that this story coming from a woman, if you're a woman, share it. We got the third female on the show this week, and she's giving us the story of how she's made it to the top of being the Executive Director of Ukubak. Francis, we went to a break when you were telling us the leadership development. Let me start by asking you a question on this second one of the show. What is your understanding of leadership?
Okay, my understanding of leadership is really a gift from God to guide others and to support others to be able to do what they do even better. For me, that is leadership for me. To use a gift that you have to be able to support others, to guide others, and to direct others in a way that can make them perform better or even contribute better. Yeah, for me, that's leadership for me.
Okay, so what is self-leadership to you?
Self-leadership is, to me, leadership where myself, as a leader, for example, I am able to guide myself, I could use the same words, to guide myself, to direct myself in a way that I can be exemplary to the others. In a way that I can be an example for others, or in a way that I can develop as a person in a way that others can be able to benefit from my growth. So that is self-leadership for me, having that focus on yourself to grow yourself into someone that can be an example to others, someone that can direct others, someone that can, support others, or someone that can be able to guide, others to a particular direction, in order to achieve something that is for a common good.
Okay.
So for me, that is self-leadership.
Wow. That said, Francis, about 30 years ago, Ukubak was started.
13
years?
30.
30 years.
Yes, yes.
I have been reading about Ukubak, and about 30 years ago, it is said that Ukubak started.
Yeah.
But, of course, we would argue that this could be the oldest NGO or organization in the country,
yes,
in that regard, in
yes,
its category.
Yes.
And we want to know, fairly a young person leading it now called Francis Birungi Odong as an executive director. How does it feel steering this kind of an organization with that kind of weight?
Yes, it actually feels great. It feels great, and also it's a challenge at the same time, because I feel that as a leader of an organization that is one of the oldest organizations in the country, I have a burden on me to ensure that this organization does not collapse in my hands, because that will be bad for our generation as leaders.
Yes.
So I feel that it's it is something that is very exciting. It is empowering. It is something that is really empowering for me, especially as a woman, to be in the steering wheel for this organization. But at the same time, I feel that I have something to prove. I have something to prove in the way that I have to show that this young generation can lead. It can lead differently, and it can, you know, move this organization to greater heights. Okay. So that is how it feels for me being in this position. Yeah. But I know for sure that as a young leader of this organization, I am supposed to look at the good things that have happened by the older generation, that have been able to move this organization to where it is.
And build on it.
And build on that.
Yeah.
Yes, because if I don't look at the history of the organization and how the founder members and the other leaders that have been in the organization have been able to bring it to this level for 30 years. You know, Eddie, that civil society organizations are very fluid. Many times they fail to go beyond even 5 years. Yeah. So there is something about them that they had that I feel I need to tap into, so as to be able to move this organization forward, so that I can also hand it over to the younger people to move it over. So I feel that I need to do more. I need to do my research to find out what it is that they have done, but also what can I do with the environment that I'm in now, in my time. What is it that I can do for this organization to make sure that it is stronger than it was before, but it is also a healthy organization to be handed over to the next generation.
Wow.
Yes.
So feeling, Francis, is a thought. Feeling is something that goes in the brain of a human being that is processed. But there's what we call responding to a specific stimuli, which is action, signal sent. Yeah. Do you think you are doing it right now?
Yeah, good question. I think I am doing that. I am doing that because I've got a good note from the, the founders of the organization, but also people that have been leading before. And I feel that I'm doing well in terms of action, in the sense that UCOBAC has really grown from who it was to who it is now. Just to take you back, as an organization, we started with one program area, which was basically working with orphans and vulnerable children and supporting them in different ways. Yeah. But from, probably 1 or 2 years back, the organization has taken on other program areas. We're now operating with 4 program areas: in sexual and reproductive health and gender-based violence, issues to do with climate change, and women's land and property rights. So for me, the fact that we are able to do more than what the organization originally thought it could do is amazing. But also it shows that we are able to respond to the needs of the time. And I feel that a leader, a good leader, is one that is able to transform the organization to be responsive to the needs of the current times. And that is what I and my team are doing to ensure that we are responding, we are relevant to the current situation. By the time UCOBAC was formed, it was orphans and vulnerable children. Today it is beyond that. It's climate change issues, it's women's land rights issues, it's issues to do with sexual and reproductive health issues, gender-based violence. So how do you make sure that the organization is able to be responsive to the current needs, but also to be relevant in the current times? And I think a leader, if I was a leader that came in at this time and I still had one program area of orphans and vulnerable children, that's where everyone would have question marks and say, okay, something is not right. So I think that is action in itself, that the organization is having more action areas. I am able to create this change in the organization without really disrupting the mandate of the organization, but also supporting my team to be able to, to appreciate that this is the direction that we need to move into right now, and also for them to be able to contribute, to support them, my team, to be able to contribute in these different areas by building their capacity, by giving them spaces to be able to learn and grow, so that they can then be able to contribute in these different areas. So for me, I think action is there.
All right. So If you are a viewer out there and of course looking into the CEO bench, when I say looking into, it means you are hearing what Francis is saying and what Eddie is saying and thinking. That's what we call looking into it. But watching on television is what you are doing right now. So we want you to watch and also think. And Francis, this program combines intellectual rigor with personal challenge, collaborations with creative expression. Right now, we want to know from you. Oakback recently changed its leadership from the board level.
Yes.
And also, just like any other organization or any other sector, human resource turnaround or turnover in NGO world is a common currency, as my friend Yuanto Chom keeps saying. And how are you managing the change in this organization? We are now on the change management process of the CEO bench.
Okay. So change is good. I should start from that point. Change is good, but at the same time, change is very hard. And many times we find that there's a lot of resistance to change. But I think the best way to manage change is to accept that it's a good thing. It is hard, it is difficult, it is challenging, but it is a good thing. And as a leader, once you have that change in mindset, that change is good and you're open to change, then it helps. So as an organization and as a leader in this organization, I try to make sure that I am open to change. And this is change in different ways. Change in leadership, change in staffing, change in processes, because change is good, but also change is an indication of growth for the organization.
Yes.
So how we manage change is that first and foremost, we try as much as possible to prepare the organization for change. So you have mentioned that we have had a new board that has come in. This is not something that happened out of the blue. There has been preparation for this change. The board members themselves have been prepared. Were prepared that this is going to happen, and they were supported to understand why it is important for this to happen. And these are board members that had been board members for 10 years. And of course, the way they do things is very different from the way things are being done today. And of course, there was some kind of resistance, some kind of not understanding
because
really
in
why
Uganda, change in Africa, change is a problem. Change is not good for us. We don't know how to embrace it yet.
It is, but we appreciate that it's very difficult to accept change, but it is a good thing. And the board members, the older board members were supported to understand why it is important to have this change. And they have handed over very happily to a new board. And the new board also has come in, but we have prepared them through the orientation process to be open to change, because as an organization we keep on changing.
So you're preparing them before their time.
Before their time. They are now.
So this is now the new generation kind of thinking that you step in there with a plan, knowing that tomorrow you will be asked to
exactly, exactly. So we do prepare our leaders, our governance for change, and not only in terms of the leaders themselves changing, but also the systems, the programs that we are doing, the staffing. There is a lot of change that happens because of the changes that are happening in our environment. It's not a static environment. So that is how change is happening. The organization is open to change. As a leader, I am open to change. A number of times I get staff that have to move on. And for me, I come from a background where I appreciate the fact that that is good change. For me, it shows me if one of my staff comes to me and says, I am moving on to another organization, it's a better opportunity. For me, I celebrate that, because I feel like I have contributed something to the growth of this staff, and this staff is building a career, is moving on, and is creating space for newer generation or younger people to come in. So I usually celebrate that. I support them to transit and then bring in new people to the organization, support them to, to be able to also make their own contribution in that space. So there's change that happens in the organization in terms of staff, in terms of programs, but as a leader, we try as much as possible to be open to it, to be able to support the systems, but also the personnel to be open to it, but also to appreciate it, despite the fact that it is hard.
Okay.
So that is our approach that we take.
Okay. And to our viewers, this is change management process in the CEO bench, and of course, when we say the CEO bench has that, we put leaders, CEOs on the CEO bench to task to explain some of the things. And the CEO bench brings out people who are in position of leadership and are actually practicing leadership by doing what they are supposed to do. And today on the show we have Francis, or Francis, depending on where you come from. Of course, the executive director of Huckelbach, who is telling us more about how she's actually managing change. Now, viewers engage with integrative mind maps of organizational and leadership development on this program. And that is the focus for us here, as well as instantly applicable practices for becoming more effective as a leader, but as well as becoming dynamic as an individual, as well as collective. Francis, on that note, the NGO sector in Uganda is well known for many things, good and bad. In some circles, we believe that they do good things, but quite a number of times we try to measure the impact of what they are doing and we don't see. How is it that, or rather, how are you doing it at Huckelbach? 30 years down the road, can you measure your impact? Can we see it? And we're looking at measuring impact by measurable metrics. We're talking about, looking at the quantifiable, justifiable, measurable metrics of an organization. And so we want to put you on task as a CEO who has come in, or as an executive director who is there. How are you managing this? Can we see, can you take us through some of this that we can see today? Of course, reading from out there, I see that Huckelbach is known. You can't even mention the full names, and it's known by that full name. It's known by the short name of it.
Huckelbach, yes.
So how are you doing it?
Okay, thank you. That's a very good question. And I think monitoring change and impact is very critical for any organization, because many times we do a lot as civil society organizations, but if we don't track what we are doing, we end up doing nothing. And that's why you say that sometimes organizations are either doing something good or sometimes doing something bad. In many cases, they are doing good, but are not able to demonstrate, or they're not able to track that, they are doing good in these areas. And I think that's a gap that many civil society organizations have. I think the issue of monitoring impact and being able to demonstrate impact really comes from the organization being very clear from the onset on what its objectives are. That is the starting point. You need to be clear about what it is that you want to see as change. And what is change to you as an organization? What is it that you would celebrate as change, for example? So I think once you are very clear on that, you have a very clear vision, you have a very clear mission, very clear and smart objectives for the organization, it becomes easier for you to be able to monitor change. And that is one thing that I don't know if many organizations are doing, but the ones that I've interacted with are investing a lot to making sure that they have smart objectives. Beyond smart objectives, an organization...
We need accountability.
Yes,
We need
I know.
accountability, yes.
Beyond that, I think as an organization, we need to have systems.
Yeah.
Systems are very important. If you don't have systems and you're doing everything the way you want, then you will not be able to know if you're making a contribution or not in society. So systems are very important in the organization, but one of the major systems in terms of measuring impact is this, the issue of monitoring and evaluation systems. So there has to be a policy for the organization that responds or that shows that this organization is able to meet its objectives, but is also able to meet the objectives of the country and the world at large. So you have to see that that link, because we don't work in isolation as civil society organization. We complement efforts of government. So we have to make sure that our objectives that we do are in line or contribute or complement on what the national development plans are, for example. But also we need to look at the sustainable development goals. What are the goals that we would look at to say that there is development in the world, So it's very clear to have a policy in place, a monitoring and evaluation policy that will show you that your interventions or your programs are first and foremost responding to your organizational objectives, but are also responding to the national priorities and are also contributing to the sustainable development goals. So a policy is very clear. It will show you what systems, what you need to have in place. For example, you need to have monitoring tools for each program. You need to have personnel in the monitoring and evaluation to be able to collect data that you can then analyze and see whether you're contributing to this. You have to have a framework that really shows that the different programs that you're doing, the interventions that are under each program area, and how you're going to collect data that will inform you that you're making change or not. So that is a very valid question, very good, and I think as leaders, it is something that we need to really focus on, so that then we don't waste resources. The resources are directed towards our goals and vision.
Francis, what are your take on these issues, and how are you as an ED basically dealing with some of these issues in your organization? The issues that I'm talking about are issues of transformation and change, learning the organization and how they do things, and of course the level of leadership development in that organization. I know you've mentioned some of them. We're talking about the practical practices for transformational leadership change. You've talked about many changes. You've mentioned the issue of accountability. We have seen leaders being arrested in some of these organizations because they're not doing it well. We've followed your story very well, and on the CEO bench, somebody has to nominate you, and we often have to have 3 nominations for you to come on the bench. You surpassed the 3 nominations, and you are on the bench today. What is that one thing that when you look back you think was worth somebody nominating you to come here?
Okay, I think
given the levels I'm talking about, transformational,
yes,
transformation and change, leadership and organization, levels of leadership development, practices for transformational leadership.
I would say that my nomination to be here could be mainly because of my style of leadership. And I think my style of leadership is unique in the sense that I don't believe that leadership means being feared or being I know all, I do all, but it is empowering others to be able to walk a journey with you. And that is how I lead. My team, I currently have a team of over 35 staff in the organization. And I try as much as possible to make them comfortable in this organization. The fact is that many of the people that we work with spend most of the time of their day in these organizations doing the best that they can do. So we need to show them as leaders that we value their time, we value their contribution, and therefore support them to grow in this process. So what I think is very unique in my style of leadership is that I try as much as possible to make it a family kind of organization where I am not, as leaders, as a team of leaders, we are not mechanic, but we are human beings. We try to listen to what our members are going through, support them through their journeys, but also I have this feeling that everyone can contribute something. So I am a kind of leader who actually does not believe in interviews. Unfortunately, I don't believe in interviews. I have this feeling that everyone is able to do something if they are supported, and if they are given a platform to grow, and if they are given the resources, the ability, if they are treated in the right way, they are able to contribute something, So I try as much as possible. Many times in our organization, we bring young girls straight from university who have not even had any, training before. We don't normally do interviews. Those are really rare cases. So we bring these volunteers in, and we support them to grow into the organization. We tap into their abilities, but also support them through trainings, through exposing and providing platforms for them to go and make presentations, for them to go to and interact, so that they can then be able to grow and make their contribution the best way that they can. Yeah. So I feel that transformation comes like that, by providing space for growth, not only for you as a leader, but also for the people that are in your team. Yeah. Because if Francis as a leader, I am doing everything. I am the one writing proposals, I'm the one meeting donors, I am the one coming to speak to Eddie, I will break down. Yeah. But I need to build a team that is able to do that, so that when I'm doing something else, there is someone else that is doing something else, and they are growing in the process, and therefore I am able to also take care of myself as a leader. So if I don't do that, then I get overwhelmed with a lot of work, with a lot of stress and so forth. So for me, I think that is a very powerful way of leading, but also a powerful way of transforming the organization by creating new ideas, creating new blood, into space for new blood to come in, and supporting them to grow in different ways. Like myself, I started as an intern, I told you. I have grown to be a CEO. When I see these young girls come into the organization, I tell them my story. And I tell them, you're now an intern, you're doing the typing, you're running around providing paper and pen to the participants, but if you work hard, you will be in my place. And I see them really working hard, putting the best that they can be, consulting, seeking knowledge. I always encourage them to go back to school, provide the opportunity for them to do that. And in such a way, I see growth, and I celebrate this growth in the organization with the people that come in. Of course, when they come, they go, and then the new ones come. And I allow that to happen, because for me, that is growth for the organization.
Okay.
Yes.
So, Francis, if I walk right now to the community, I will be able to find and feel the impact of your work. That's what you're saying?
Yes, most definitely.
So the CEO Bench is going to take a break, and when we come back, we will put Francis onto the last part of the show to task to explain how transformation is happening in society, where Ukobak is actually doing some work as a CEO. For her, it's very special because she's an executive director on the CEO Bench, mainly to talk about herself as a person, but also what the organization is doing and the change that we are having coming through to the society as a result of some of the programs that she's talking about. Stay right there. The CEO Bench is going for a break. Make yourself a cup of coffee while we also take a coffee break. But most importantly, share this interview far and wide. You never know who you're actually going to be changing their lives.
The private sector is not yet fully utilized because not everybody can be employed by government. And we are looking at a future whereby more people are employed in the private sector than in government. So I think if we all work hard, if we all work together and invest in the right areas, there's been a lot of talk about value addition in the agriculture sector, in the mineral sector. If there is enough investment in those areas, I think it can create enough jobs for our children and grandchildren.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to take you to question number 4, Andrew, which is, let's talk about your journey at City Hall and the foray into the Executive Director's office, which is as Andrew Chitaka,
Very interesting.
as well as the Director Engineering.
Very interesting. I joined KCCA on 1st November 2011. And before then, I was
For
so much.
Yes.
CEO of, you know, whatever.
Yes.
They give so much.
This is the reason why you're actually on the bench.
Because of my credibility. Thank you so much. But now they attack you, they vilify you. And the goal is to weaken you financially. Is to weaken your honor. These are slanderers. So I'm glad that someone would stay up at night to ask and learn about me. And I pray that in the next 2 months, because I know many Ugandans who travel overseas, when they go there, one of the things, because the media has been so much, and Sam Kutesa, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, has really not done a good job. He has dropped the ball on this issue. Why? So many of us are being accused of being gay killers, including me. You've just heard that person. Uganda is being accused that we kill gays, which actually is absolutely untrue. And because of this, it has affected our tourism. It affects people who go overseas to do work or study. It affects whenever you go to a conference. Hi, my name is Eddie Okello. Where are you from? I'm from Uganda. Oh, you are the gay killers. And then you begin to describe. So one of the things that I've done is I've written a book, which should be coming out. I know that I keep saying the same thing, but the work of doing a book takes a long time, and I wish I could be supported. You know, many people who write on this subject, like Sylvia Tamale, she's supported by the Rockefeller Foundation, Carnegie Foundation. There is money.
There is a very big brand, and as we go on, we will probably discuss the things we're trying to do to see that things change for the better.
Good. Sean, on the CEO bench, for everyone who is following, we're live on our YouTube studio where we actually stream from. So YouTube studio, for everybody asking for a link, is actually House of Talent Uganda.
Confident in themselves and what they are offering. I think that's the biggest problem. Like, women will easily settle for a less pay than men would.
Mona Onyeto Deke goes on to say, I think this is a comment, says, I didn't know that beauty products are taxed at 60%. Whoa.
They are. I pray that changes soon, but they are.
So with that challenge of 60%,
setting up the company, you're doing tours all across the world. You know, a personal account is great, but how these things are taxed becomes important for you know, for your business later on. As soon as you cross that threshold of 50 million a year, you know, you're now in
the interest become more shares.
Yes.
It's the CEO bench on a Friday morning or Friday afternoon right here in Kampala. Straight from Kampala to the rest of the world is when we bring you the CEOs on the CEO bench. Today we have an executive director of a women and children organization in Uganda, 30 years in operation and still counting. Frances Birungi Odong. We are yet to know who is Odong, who is Birungi in that mix, where does she come from? And we're going to welcome back to the show, first of all. A toast to the coffee break, and we have to toast to the CEO bench right there. And Frances, before we went for break, we're having a very interesting conversation. You've talked about many things, and I want to bring some people on the show. If you're following online, we would like to say thank you very much for being a part of the CEO bench. And I have a couple of questions for you. And so please share your kisses and disses here. If we're doing well, give us the kiss. If we're doing bad, diss us, we're okay. We like to receive feedback. And now is the time for you to send as many questions as possible to Frances to be able to answer them. And I want to start with somebody here called Queenie Jill, said, go auntie, super proud and inspired. So this must be one of your people. And then of course I have Kutui Stella Rose saying that
The organization's ability to sustain itself beyond the donor funding is also okay. Wow, and key. Yeah. And she goes on to say, also the ability of a leader to mentor and continually build the capacity of itself, of its staff, to be an all-round person capable of responding to emerging new trends at work, but also outside work is key. So basically these are some of the comments coming for you, Francis. And I have another one here coming from Frank Zaga. Is saying, I am proud of you, my ED. I think these are your staff. Actually, when I joined Ukobak in 2018, I was not interviewed by a panel, rather I was given support, and now I'm a good mediator in land matters. Okay, so we can test some of your leadership abilities and the transformation. All right, Akutuya said, great work, Francis Birungi. And Diva Mukasa says, thank you very much. And if you have another question, I want to see some questions. These are kisses. Are there some questions? Do you have some questions for her and you wanted to answer? We're going to go into it right away. Francis, welcome back to the show. We want to go straight to this part of the show, which is transformation. And I can see that some people are giving you props already on that. Francis, this program is relevant for people already working. People in existing organizations, establishing their own organization or preparing to enter the workplace. It's not always easy for many people, and that's why we bring some of you who are already in that space, doing it by action, not just by talking, and then to share. And then having an organization, of course, an organizational context like you've talked about, to be able to offer, great learning or space or services to people is a good experience for us to have. And we would want to know from you, there is a very strong shrinking space, going down. Civil society organization is going down. The space in Uganda remains very small. And the biggest threat to the NGO, especially those in sensitive sector of human rights, as well as governance and land issues, seems to be quite a very difficult space. We've seen many of them arrested, and the land cases remain to be some of the very key areas. Your organization is focusing in many of these areas, and I've heard you talk about the key program areas that you're working on. We want to know from you, in some cases the police has besieged some of these offices and organizations of NGOs such as yours, arrested some of them. What are your advice to fellow leaders in civil society organizations, particularly those who find themselves in a space with police or in a running battle with police or with authority? In your submission earlier on, you said that one of the things you do, you must work in line with the national plan. What would be your advice to some of these people who find themselves in this space? And by the way, does it mean that they fall in line, out of line with government, or they are still in line with government? What happened? Okay, I think for me, I do not believe that these civil society organizations that are, have fallen victim, that they are working outside the line of government. As civil society organization, our mandate is actually beyond just the national priorities. It also goes to the global priorities. We contribute to something larger. And really most of us as civil society organization, our business is human rights. It is ensuring that human beings are able to fully exercise their human rights and fundamental freedoms. And in doing that work, together with governance work, of course you will step on many toes, because some things may not sound or be good enough for government to take in. But does that mean that we should stop doing what we're doing? I don't think we should stop doing what we're doing. I think it's very important for us to remain focused on what our mandates are. And our mandates are really to promote human rights of all individuals, irrespective of their differences. So I think many organizations are victims because they have been bold enough
to, you know, promote these rights. And many times, of course, when you're doing that, there are times when you know, the government will not be comfortable with what you're doing, but does not mean that we should stop what we are doing. So it is important to be in line with the priorities of government, but it is also not, we should not feel that we should only do the softer, easier things to do. It's important for us to also contribute on the harder things, because that's where it's pinching most for the largest part of the society. And I think the most important thing for civil society organizations to do is, first and foremost, because, you know, many of us are donor dependent. And I think one of the comments that came in was the issue of sustainability. Many of us are donor dependent, and when this happens, we can't operate because the space is closed, you can't get funding, you can't, you know, you can't meet, you can't engage. So I think we need, as civil society organization, to think about how we can be able to sustain our processes, irrespective of whether we are getting donor funding, either from government or from donor organizations. How can we, as civil society organizations, be able to raise our own resources? There's a lot of resources within the country that we can leverage on. So we need to be very innovative as civil society organization to raise resources that can sustain our processes, even when such circumstances come in. But also very important is for civil society organizations to have security plans. It's very important for because the environment that we are working in is very sensitive. And today I'm safe, tomorrow I am not. I do not know whether what I'm doing tomorrow is going to step on Eddie in government's toes. I think it's very important to have security plans, to be prepared that in the eventuality that this happens, how do I make sure that this organization does not stop to operate? And I think security plans are very important, especially around the issue of information and data. We have a lot of data, we have a lot of information, so we need to know, how do we back up? How do we keep our information in a way that it is safe for us to be able to operate even after this? Because governments come and go, and when they go, these organizations will continue doing their work. So I think that is very critical. And finally, I think as civil society organizations, we also need to do, and it's within, of course, with the security plan, to do something around defending human rights providers. So human rights defenders need to be supported. For us that are working on issues, for example, that are very sensitive, like land, people that are working on governance issues, I think such persons need to be protected, need to be supported, so that then they can be able to continue doing their work. So defending human rights, providing them with information, providing them with skills and ways in which they can keep safe. What time do you move? Whom do you interact with? What do you say where? Is very important, so that then we can be able to sustain our work irrespective of all these difficulties that we work around.
Wow. Well, you are on the CEO bench, Eddie Okello, Francis Berungi. We are talking about leadership, change management, and transformation. Francis, one of the biggest criticism of the NGO sector is the donor dependency, which you have mentioned. A lot of us argue that most foreign organization or money that comes through into this organization come with strings attached. And most times there is no room for us to build capacity locally here as an organization to go forward, because the funding given to you, 90% of it often go back to where it's supposed to come from. And NGOs have suffered. How has WOCOBAC managed to stand 30 years of doing what it does, or what it has been doing all these years? What are the strategies that you can recommend to somebody, or to some organization there, or to some CEO out there who is struggling, and to some young people who are rising into position of leadership to be able to sustain if they find themselves in an organization such as yours? Yeah, it's true. I think donor dependency is something that we really suffer as civil society organizations. And as I mentioned earlier, we need to think innovatively as civil society organizations on how we can sustain our processes, irrespective, of whether there is funding from outside or not. It's difficult, but it can happen. There are other interventions, other activities that can actually generate income for the organization, like membership fees, like doing income generating services
policies and activities that can really sustain the organization. That is very critical. So organizations need to think out of the box to find ways in which they can sustain their processes. As UCOBAC, I think our main, what has really added value or what has really helped the organization to stay for this long is the fact that when we decide to do something, we do it to our best. And that is something that I tell my team, that it does not matter how much money we get, even $1,000. We should do the best that we can do with that resource that we have. Yeah. So you asked a question before we went to the break, that if you went to the community, would you see impact? Yeah. And I would tell you that if you go to the communities where we work, we are operating in 10 districts, you will see real impact. We try as much as possible to make sure that we have systems in place, structures in place that ensure that the resources that we mobilize as an organization are properly utilized for the use that is, it's intended for. So you see impact, you see people really transforming. The transformation at community level is amazing. We work with the poorest of the poor. We work with the most vulnerable. Yeah. I sometimes don't like to use the word vulnerable because it also stigmatizes many. Yeah. But we work with that. You understand the category of people that we work with. Yeah. And it's amazing to see that when you inject information, finances, trainings to these communities, to these families, it's amazing to see how they transform from A to B. And I think for us as UCOBAC, that has helped our organization to stay, because people have seen that the work that we do is real. Yeah. People's lives are actually transforming in the different sectors that we work in, but also the issue of accountability and transparency. That is something that is priority to me as a leader, to make sure that resources that we have, either financial or material, but even the human resources, there is accountability and transparency in the way we do our things. There is nothing that I know that my staff don't know. I try as much as possible to create space for people to know what is happening in the different spaces, but also to make sure that for those that choose to work with us, we account to them. We show them that, look here, this is what we have been able to do. Yeah. We have systems that are able to show that evidence that this is happening. And so the trust is built. Many of our donors have been with us for even over 15 years. For example, and it's very rare to see that in civil society organizations. But we have our funding partners that have really walked the journey with us, because they see that we have systems in place, we have processes in place that ensure that there is transparency, there is accountability, but there's also value for money, there is impact, there's real transformation. Yeah. And our objectives are clear, and we try as much as possible not to go outside what we stand for. Yeah. There is a question where you ask that, sometimes people come with money, and as an organization you want to move. And their salary is usually higher than the local salary, and they go back with this money. And then they influence, No, for us as UCOBAC, we have our objectives, we know what our mandate is, we stick to our mandate. So irrespective of how much money you bring, if it's outside our mandate, we will not take it. By the time we choose to do these 4 program areas, we know that these are the areas that will transform a life. So if you bring your money and you say, we know you're doing these 4 things, but we have money, can you do 5, 6, and 7? That is not in our mandate. We will not take it. We may show you who can take it, or we can tell you, try elsewhere. And I think that has also helped UCOBAC to stay for long, because we choose what to do, we stick to what we do, and we work as a team. Teamwork has been very powerful for us in the organization. We make sure that we all know what we are supposed to do, and we do what we are supposed to do. Wow. Yes. Well, you are on the CEO bench, and you're hearing that coming from the Executive Director of UCOBAC on the CEO bench, talking leadership, change management, and transformation. Do you have a question for Francis Birungi Odong? And we are listening to our evening of the show, and great discussions with you, Francis. Creating proper work-life balance is one of the biggest issues with CEOs. Yes. And in Uganda, we have such a big one. Whenever ladies, for example, rise to the position of leadership, powerful places of leadership, the men begin to say, now my wife has left
she's there, but I don't think she's with us anymore.
Yeah.
The children begin to cry, and of course, sometimes also men who rise into a higher position of leadership have the same problem.
Yeah.
Now, we want to know from you, how have you managed to balance your work life as an executive director of WOCOBAC and as a mother?
And a wife.
And a wife.
I think we need to start off from understanding where this comes from. This comes from the fact that that is who our society is. It's a patriarchal society, so there's a lot of male dominance. So there's a lot of discomfort and fear that comes from a woman taking a space that is traditionally
meant for men.
So of course it is expected. So I think once we understand where that comes from, then we are able to deal or to find solutions to work around it. And what I mean is that we need to support the system. We need to transform the system, but not disintegrate it. You know, we need to realign it, to understand that the world has changed. You know, things cannot be the same. And for me, as you said, I am a mother of 4. I am a leader of a civil society organization. I am a wife. There's a lot of responsibility that comes with all that. But being a mother and wife has not stopped me from being a leader as well. And I think this comes from, first and foremost, understanding the environment in which I'm working. So I am able to speak with Mr. Odong to support him, because I understand that Mr. Odong has grown up in a society that I've also grown up in, and he may get a shock with what is happening. So creating that environment where he's able to understand why it is important for me to participate in this space as well. How it supports him as a man, how it helps our family, how it helps society. Once he appreciates that, then he creates the space that will enable me to do all that. The challenge we have is that many women like me, when we get empowered, we become fighters. We go in our homes, we want to fight. We want to show, we want to show that I've arrived, I know human rights, I'm a woman, empowerment. And that is a wrong approach, because we must understand where does this come from. Don't blame the human being, but blame the system, and find ways in which you can support this person to interrogate the system, but also navigate for the benefit of himself, yourself, the children, the family, and the organization and the country at large. So I think it's very wrong for many women, and we do this even in the communities when we talk to women and empower them, tell them don't go home and start telling the man, so says, I now know, I have been told. Help them to understand why this is important, because you're going to contribute something. You want the children to go to international schools, you're admiring everyone to go to international schools, but you're saying your wife should not go to work. You're going to break down as Eddie. You're going to get stressed, you will die, you will leave me in stress, the children are not. So if you appreciate and you understand all that, then you will create the space. So I think for me as an individual, that has worked very well for me. I have created a space where me and my husband have been able to appreciate the good that comes from empowering a woman. We have one daughter. We create a lot of space for her as well to be empowered, because we have demonstrated it, that when I do well, you do well as my husband, the family does well, you know, the children are in better schools, they are fed well, they're getting good health. So for me, I really think it's a process. It's not something that changes in an instant, but we have to create a space that allows people to interrogate some of those difficulties around our system and how we can be able to reshape and you know, change the order of the day. And that can only happen if the other gender appreciates
what is going on,
what comes with a woman being in this space and participating in this process. And I think that has worked very well in my experience.
Wow. Well, the CEO bench is coming to the end, and of course, Francis is spitting fire to some women. I hope she doesn't get her leg broken along the way while leaving the CEO bench on this day. Francis, how are you able to keep healthy and, you know, and fit? And what are some of the tips that you would share with us on the CEO bench to be able to strike a proper balance? I'm a health and fitness coach.
Okay.
And I have a very strong background in human kinetics, and you know, specialize in what they call muscle hypertrophy. So 90% of my time I spend with CEOs and MDs, people who are in higher position than I am. They are mostly attracted to me because they have a deficit of health and fitness. And so they're usually superhuman in offices, but super broken humans in health and fitness. How have you been able to balance this life of health and fitness, you know, to some leaders who might be disfigured right now, for lack of a better word, that they have been able to disfigured because of stress comes in, and they have lost shape. You are in pretty good shape. How are you able to do it? We know who to credit also, but yes.
Yeah, thank you, Eddie. That's a very good question. And I think self-care is priority for all leaders, but also for everyone. Self-care is very important. And for me as a leader, I know that if I am sick, if I am unhealthy, I will have an unhealthy organization, a sick team, and everything will disintegrate. So I try as much as possible to be healthy in mentally, but also physically. And what I do as a person is that I take time to go to the gym after work. It doesn't have to be a whole hour. Even if it's 30 minutes, I can, you know, work out and try to re-energize for the next day. And usually I have found that when I do that, the next day I'm alert, I am able to think, to strategize, and you know, and everyone can tell that things are moving well. So physical fitness is very critical, but also taking off time, me time, you know, to just take care of myself, be happy. So I can go out with my siblings, I go out with my friends, my husband, you know, take off time out of the city, go somewhere, relax, read a novel, no books, no laptop, no nothing. You know, a day or two, it makes a very big difference. You know, it just brings sanity back, and you're able to transfer this sanity to the people that you lead. And I also encourage my team. Every time I talk to them, I encourage them, you know, take some time off, go, you know, relax, go out, do some exercises. And some people say, we don't have time to go to the gyms. You can do it in your bedroom, you can stretch around, you can do yoga, and all these things I do and support my team to also do that. And I think it's very critical for us to take care of ourselves so that then we can be healthy as leaders and also be able to make our organizations healthy, our teams healthy, and the country will be healthy as well.
If you are joining us, the CEO Bench has come to an end. Of course, Francis right there, or Frances, as some of you would like to call it, or call her. And of course, she is the CEO of, or the ED of Okoback. On the CEO Bench, I have a very interesting comment here coming in from Maureen Achand Aimbizibwe. She's saying that, proud of you, Mrs. Odong, you are doing a good job. And I've got the last one here coming from Akutui Stella Rose. How have you managed to thrive in the midst of the shrinking civil society space? What strategies are you putting in place for safety? I think she's referring to that. Maybe that will be our last question as we wind up, of course, from that point of comment coming from other people. Would you like to respond to her? She's saying that, what are you doing? What are the strategies for your safety?
Yeah, we have a security plan as an organization. And this security plan goes as far as looking at safety of the offices within which we operate. So making sure that the place is secure. We have security people in place. You know, we have the physical security systems, but also very critically information. We try as much as possible to back up our information on a regular basis and make sure that our data is not disrupted. We can be able to access it and continue to operate from wherever we are. But also trying as much as possible to work in collaboration with the government, with our government leaders, so that they can understand what we do, appreciate what we do, and see how this contributes or complements their efforts. Because once they do not understand and appreciate that, then they will always see you as a threat. Civil society organizations have always been labeled as a threat, an organization that is against government, but not necessarily. So for them to be able to work with you, to be part of the processes, so that they can then see that yes, we are doing governance work, yes, we are doing land work, but this is for the good of the country. There is a lot that we are contributing, and we can do this together. That has really helped us as an organization to be able to sustain our processes.
Well, we have come towards the end of the show. Our time is fast spent here, Francis, and thank you very much for coming to the show today. The CEO Bench, like I said earlier on, exists to give you a platform to be able to share with us what you're doing, and we bring people who are already doing it, people who are practicing it, people who know where they want to go and can share that plan with us. When was the last time you cooked for Mr. Odong?
I cook for Mr. Odong whenever I can. He cooks for me as well. Yes. And that is what I was talking about, that there needs to be a shift in terms of who does what. So it's not necessarily me who should cook for him.
Because EDs always leave these questions. The food is always prepared by the maid. So that's why we want to know whether Mr. Odong actually has food cooked by his ED wife.
Okay, when there is time, when time allows, I create time for that. But I emphasize that he does that for me as well, because we need to support each other. We are all contributing equally to the growth of our family. So it is important that when we have time, we do such nice things for each other. Yes.
Is Mr. Odong, by the way, out of curiosity, in the civil society organization?
No, he actually works for the government of Uganda. He's a civil servant. So yes, so I'm doing civil society work. I'm complementing the work that he's doing in government.
So, and out of just fun questions, so if there was a fight between the civil society organization and the government, and it comes to your house because you are in the civil society organization and he's in a civil society, he's a civil servant. What happened when you have a fight in the home? When government accuses you and this is happening, do you guys have a fight at home?
We talk. No, we don't fight. Fight is something that he knows I am against gender-based violence, and he supports the work that I do. So we talk, and he will tell me the government position. I will bring in the civil society position, and then we see, you know, sometimes we agree, sometimes we agree to disagree, but we move forward.
Well,
yes.
All right. And who owns the land title, by the way? Now that you masters in the land rights, you probably might be owning all the land titles. That
no. Yeah. We own our property together. We co-own as husband and wife, and that is what we try to teach our communities for co-ownership. But also, I own some land individually, and I don't do it in hiding. He knows that when we have that discussion, and I can own land individually as a woman because we have the right to do so, and he owns some properties individually, but we also have a lot of property where we have both contributed, and we also own that together. And if all families could do that, I think we'd have peace. I have been married to Mr. Odong for over, we are coming to 18 years, and I think this is something that facilitators are just being able to discuss these issues, being able to discuss some of the difficulties in the system and seeing the benefits that come from changing or transforming some of these issues has helped us, and I hope that it can help many families if they adapt to it.
Well, we've come to the end of this show, and Francis, your parting shot here, we're looking at organizational culture, tools of collaborations and levels of organization development, creating an agile organization and practices from the future. What are your summary of these things as a CEO who is on the move, who is training and mentoring people to hand over this organization? Thinking from the future. And your summary and your last word to your people.
So as a leader, a CEO of this organization, my really parting comment is really to the younger generation that it is our time to take on leadership, and we need to be ready for it. So there's a lot of things that we can do to be ready for it. We can learn from the older leaders, learn the good parts, good things that they have done, and be able to understand the realities that are existing right now in our environment, the changes, the opportunities, the challenges, and take advantage, seek knowledge as much as possible, go back to school, you know, have studies, you know, go to spaces where there are interactions and conversations so that we can be better leaders and show that we are able to lead and transform our communities and our organizations, so that by the time we hand over to the coming generation, I hope that our generation will not be one that sticks to power, but we can be able to pass on this mantle to the new generation, a healthy community, a healthy organization, healthy country, and to healthy people that have learned from us. So those are my parting words, and I wish all leaders, young leaders like myself, all the best in their leadership journey.
Well, thank you very much for coming to the CEO Bench today. It's time for us to toss to the CEO Bench, and until next week, the CEO Bench has come to an end. We've hosted and we've been talking to Francis Birungi Odong, the CEO of Ukubak. And if you have liked the interview, share it far and wide. Please make sure you don't be selfish. CEOs are not selfish. And of course, we want to encourage all of you to send us a nomination of who you would want to see as the next CEO on the CEO Bench. Until next time, stay blessed. The CEO Bench signing out. Eddie Okyila, Francis Birungi signing out.
My name is Dr. Jinpo Olowo. Thank you for watching House of Talent Television. I love to inspire people. I love to talk about my experiences and how God has been able to use me in the different exposures. And through the leadership, through change management and transformation, I've been able to do a couple of things in my life. Now, are you a kind of person who is tired of your status quo? Do you want your situation to change? Are you tired of what is going on in your life? You know, change is a fact of life. We've all been through experiences in the last couple of months that have taken us to a place where we need to do something about our lives. We need to change whatever is going on. So if you have not piled up investment for yourself, you need to do that. If you've not done businesses to hold your family in future, you need to do that. Are you thinking of full-time employment? You need to be thinking about your life after employment or your business in the next couple of years. So if you want us to chat, if you want us to talk about this, please get in touch with us at SEAL Uganda on number 0772-443085, or check our website www.sealuganda.com, or on all the social media handles. You can hook me up or Facebook, that is Jinpo Olowo, on Instagram, Jinpo Olowo, and on Twitter and LinkedIn. Then we can chat a way forward with you. We can help you, we can coach you, we can walk with you this journey of financial freedom. Thank you.